Hey guys, it's Dan. Welcome back. Disclaimer at the beginning here, this is not going to be a normal video. There's really no hobby content in this other than the footage in the background, which will be of me clipping some bits off of sprues. But I wanted to make this video because it's fresh on my mind. I think it's kind of cathartic to talk about, and I have found great solace in like Reddit communities where people talk about going through some of the same things that I have gone through. And I hope that maybe with us being a community, at least one person out there might get something out of this video. But so I have OCD. It runs in my family. I've never been diagnosed, but my mom has, my grandmother was. And the way that it manifests is it's not like monk, like where you have to put things in order to feel like something won't happen that's wrong. It's just overthinking and catastrophizing, as my grandmother would say, where it opens me up to a lot of intrusive thoughts and by extension anxiety. And sometimes it's triggered by stress, like starting a new job. But that's, I think, where I would differentiate anxiety and stress. Like stress, there's a focal point, right? There's an explanation for it. Anxiety is almost like a cosmic unease, like a general sense that something is wrong that you can't put your finger on. And as a result, you can get into this cycle where the unease and the intrusive thoughts about the unease kind of self-perpetuates. So yeah, I've had instances where there was really nothing stressful happening in my life. And I have a great life. I know that, like, I'm a very logical person. I know that I have a really privileged life. I have a beautiful and brilliant and supportive wife. I have healthy and happy children. I'm successful, I think, professionally, financially. I have a really solid friend group, vacations in the summertime. We just went down to Mexico this year, so I'm very blessed with all that I have. And yet, there are times where I just feel this like crushing sense of unease, and that cycle is like, given that I have all of this goodness in my life, the fact that I'm still feeling anxious and having these intrusive thoughts about that anxiety is what then in turn causes this anxiety, because I think, why am I worried, right? There must be something wrong with me. And the constant like mind chatter, thinking, is what ends up causing this. And it doesn't happen all the time. Like I'll go like 10 months without having any kind of anxious feelings, or I always shouldn't say like no anxious feelings, but like no major issues. And major issues, I would have, like, I have two anecdotes that are fresh in my mind that I just wanted to share. It's kind of what I wanted to make this video about. Where like the last 2 weeks, it has been a really anxious time. And again, there was a stress trigger for it, which is that I had one night of really bad sleep where I had to wake up early to take my oldest daughter to the airport at like 3 a.m, and we didn't go to bed till like 11. And so I didn't sleep at all that night at all. And so what happened is the following night, I thought like, oh, well, I definitely need to get a good night of sleep tonight because I've got work in the morning. I can't go 2 nights of sleep, or nights without sleep. And so that put all this pressure on sleep the following night. So when, within 10 minutes I hadn't fallen asleep, I started panicking, worrying that, oh my God, I'm not going to sleep well again tonight. And then lo and behold, I didn't. And it's funny reading like on insomnia threads and stuff, people talking about like getting a bad night of sleep being like tossing and turning till 3 a.m. and only getting 4 hours of sleep. This is like, I watched the sun come up. Like, I did not sleep. And I'm sure I dozed, but the feeling that I was waking up 50 times, right? And never checking my phone, never, like, I was doing all the right sleep hygiene stuff. And yet still seeing the sun come up, and then like power napping for 30 minutes before work, really was depressing and scary. And this has happened before. Like, as I said, it doesn't happen all the time. Like, it's not like I'm constantly sleep deprived, but when I have like stress triggers like that, I then feel this anxiety, right? And so then the following night was the same way. I got probably like 2-3 hours of sleep, and it was a whole week of this. And then during the daytime, because I'm sleep deprived, which does not help with anxiety, right? Because your emotional stability is kind of out of whack at that point. It was funny, like I was sitting at my desk at work midway through this week, and like there were like maybe 1 or 2 nights where I did get a good night of sleep or a solid night of sleep, but I'm at my desk at work just like constantly like self-scanning my body, right? Thinking constantly, because this is how my brain works, but also like checking in physically with myself, like, ooh, is that normal? Is that a normal feeling? And I induced a panic attack on myself, at like waves of fear, depersonalization, like feeling like I wasn't myself, like something was seriously wrong, over thinking about having a panic attack. Like that's how cyclical this stuff is. So it's just fascinating that, and again, I want to say too that like I'm okay now. I've actually had 2 really good nights of sleep and a lot of time to reflect. And I think that's a part of why I wanted to make this video, is I think that every time I've had bouts like this, I've tried my best to learn something from it. Not in the sense that like good can come out of bad, right? And maybe there's truth in that. But it's more just I want to make it as constructive as I can, because I anticipate like some of my children are going to have these issues too. So if I can learn any little thing from any of these incidences, I think that can make them at least somewhat productive. So anyway, with both of those instances, you can see from the outside, maybe you don't suffer from anxiety, you don't have these same kind of intrusive thoughts, but it's very obvious, like logically, that I induced both of these things, right? My worrying over the thing caused the thing. But logic doesn't always help, right? And those that do struggle with this understand that well, that it's not a logic game. But I have found over time there are a lot of things that help cope, and I did want to talk about what kind of put the nail in the coffin for my sleep issues on this round. So the things that help, right, like again, Reddit threads are incredibly helpful in providing some of this information, just providing a community to know that you're not alone. And that's the number one thing I hope that if anyone is struggling with this takes away from this video, which is that you are absolutely not alone. And it doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, right? Again, I just listed off all the great things in my life. I think I'm in a pretty great spot. And yet still, I'm just like you, some nights lying awake till the sun comes up, stressed that I'm not gonna fall asleep. So you're not alone. In terms of like tactics, because I think that taking some control, feeling like you can do something. My wife differentiates, and she's right, between like flipping levers, is what she calls it, when you're just trying everything, like just pressing every button on the dashboard to try to make something happen. And what I would call like techniques for maintenance, right, are different, right? So like breathing exercises are really helpful, especially in the middle of a panic attack. Like check out 4-7-8 breathing. It's a really solid technique just for kind of stabilizing your mind. But then lots of other maintenance items, right? Like getting outside. I make a conscious effort to either go for a jog or do some gardening, like at least 30 minutes a day, just get outside. I think the sunlight helps. Just if any activity outside like gardening, it helps to distract your mind a little bit. Some light exercise, again, jogging helps. I've been getting up doing exercises in the morning, and I find, again, that the dopamine release helps. But what really has helped me this time around is a combination of things, which is like, first of all, like recklessly positive thinking. And I don't know, I'm not a doctor. I don't know if there's like chemical science behind it, but I've found that when you just almost like lie to yourself, like I'm great, everything is really great, like almost in, I don't want to say a delusional way, right? Because that slips down into this slope of, is something wrong with me? But just constantly telling yourself like, I'm okay, I'm really great, like things are great. I'm not anxious. I feel amazing. That you will start to, even if you tell yourself that 1,000 times in a day, it almost does change your brain chemistry, right? Like it's not just focusing on the positive things. It is just being positive, trying to force yourself to feel positive. And for intrusive thoughts, especially like with regard to sleep, like the way that I fixed my sleep problem was in part almost from like, I call it like an ego death of my sleep concerns, that like I had hit like the 3rd or 4th day where I was not sleeping. I got maybe like 2 hours of sleep a night at most. And that was like after the sun came up, I crashed before work and then like dozed for a bit. And then what I found though by like the 4th day was that you almost hit this like low plateau, where it doesn't get any worse. And it's like, you realize like, who cares, right? Like I'm not doing great at work, but I'm functioning, right? I'm coasting along here, so who cares? I hope I don't sleep tonight, right? You almost flip the intrusive thoughts into like flippant comments, like, you know what, let's go again. Like, you know what, like, I don't need any goddamn sleep. Like, right, it gives me more time to think about my novel, right? Or whatever it is that you want to do. Really, and try your best to mean it, right? Like, because that's where what is keeping you awake is the fear of being awake. So if you don't care about that, or try your best to not care about that, it really does change things a lot. But the reason I wanted to make it as part of this Wargaming channel, this video, is because one big one that helped a lot is like leaning into the hobby, especially when you're feeling low and unmotivated from anxiety, or, you know, anxiety, as you might be aware, leads to depression, right? Because you feel like, I can't control my thoughts, therefore what's even the purpose, right? So it's this really horrible doom loop. And so in those low moments, I certainly don't feel like doing anything hobby related, but I found that when I forced myself to, especially when I didn't want to, it helps in the same way that, again, like gardening helps, because, like, think about it, like painting helps focus your mind, it slows your thoughts. Even this video of me just clipping bits from a sprue and organizing them, I think, is relaxing. Planning an army project, thinking about lists, learning a rule set, they all help distract your mind and prevent you from thinking about thinking, right? But critically, again, I'm sorry if you're going through any of this. I completely understand, but it's important that you really be kind to yourself and don't give yourself a hard time for this. Talk about how you're feeling. Hell, drop a comment in this video if you just want to chat. I'm sure we could talk each other's ears off about all we've been through and what we're going through. But again, you're not alone and everything is okay. And thanks for watching. And in the meantime, happy gaming and hopefully happy thoughts.